Hello everybody and welcome back to another video here at BurgZerg Arcade. Today we're actually going to start creating the item system that we're going to be using in, well, not just the hack and slash series, but, well, really hopefully in a lot of our games. So let's go ahead and we'll open up Unity and start off. Now I've already gone ahead and created a project. I've just simply called mine item system. And of course we're going to set up the basic folders that we usually do. I was going to do this ahead of time, but people seem to want to see everything, all the steps along the way, so let's go ahead and do that. So the first one I'm going to create is just called scripts. And I'm actually going to change that a bit, since this is actually meant to be a module that we import from project to project. I don't want it to be just in the scripts folder, as we might import this into another project that has a scripts folder, and there could be some sort of well, basically collision with as far as the names of the scripts go. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit more unique as far as file names go, the hierarchy. So I'm actually going to create another folder. And I guess I'm just going to start off calling it BurgZerg Arcade. Call yours what you want. This one here, I know that if there's any sort of name collision going on, it's going to be with the names of my files, not names of files that I've created plus files that someone else has created. I'm going to drag scripts in there. Go ahead, go into the BurgZerg Arcade folder. I'm going to create another folder. And this is going to be the item system, so I'm actually going to make a folder for that. Because later on, when we get into making a spell system, an import manager, all these other things, we'll have the same structure. Of course, it'll just be a different name. Now, I'll take scripts, go ahead and put them in there. Because there could be other scripts that I want to put in there, or other things that I want to put in there besides scripts. Maybe you have some default icons for some of your drop-down menus and whatnot. So we'll go ahead, we'll just start off with that. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into scripts. And in here, I'm going to create another folder. And I want to call this interfaces. Now, an interface it's not quite a class. If you went and looked up the technical meaning as far as computer science go, they're going to go tell you, it's this concrete structure of, blah, 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 blah. Basically, well, we'll go over it and we'll show you what it looks like. What I want to do first is create a new C# script. And this is going to be for my base class. Basically, it's going to be the structure of our base item in game. So I'm going to go ahead and call this, well, I'll start off with an I, just so I know that it's an interface. Then I'm going to say item system. And of course, we'll just use IS for that. And object. Now we'll open this up. And let's go ahead, we'll get it set up, and then we can talk a little bit about an interface. All right, so come up here, it's not a class, it's an interface. We're not going to inherit from mono behavior. And we're not going to have any methods in it. Alrighty, I think I got everything set up fine here. Okay, so an interface. An interface is basically, without going into all the computer science jargon for those who aren't interested in it, it's a way to describe any class that inherits from this, certain functionality that it's going to have. Now, let's say we wanted to create a method that just simply added two numbers together and return them. And we want to make sure that everything that inherits from this class has that functionality. We could go in and just do something like int, saying that it returns an int. We'll call the function itself add. And what's it take? It's going to take int, we'll just call it num1, int num2. And that's it. Now, every class that inherits this is going to have to have this method implemented. So that means everything is going to have an add method that takes in two ints and returns an int. So it's just a great way later on knowing when you're dealing with these objects exactly certain properties about them that they'll always have. For instance, maybe all your potions, you want a drink function. So if you go ahead and make an interface for potions, iPotions, and all your potions inherit from it, there's going to be a function called drink. So again, without all the computer science jargon, that's basically what you're looking at with an interface. So for an object, I want this to be the absolute base object that we can have in our game. So that means everything is going to inherit from it, pretty much. So there's lots of things we could add, and some that maybe we want to take out and put into other objects. But we'll just go ahead and we'll make a list here. Like, first thing we're going to want is to have is a name. And I'm just going to put them as comments. So everything in my game is going to have a name. I can't think of anything that is not going to have a name. And everything in my game, I want to have a value. Gold value, that is. I'm pretty sure everything in my game is going to have some sort of icon or a sprite representation, even for stuff that doesn't go in my inventory system. I still want to be able to like maybe right click on it and in its description have an icon as well there. I'm thinking, do I really want that? I think so. I'm pretty sure I do. So I'm just going to call that icon for now. Of course, these are all comments. Some things in the game are going to be able to, you're going to be able to equip them. So equip. This is actually supposed to be a comment. Now I've gone ahead and made a space down here because I know not all my items are going to be equipable. Maybe your game they are, but for instance, in my game, potions, you're not going to be able to equip a potion. Maybe you want to have a potion be able to equip in your game and you can throw it and that glass beaker does 1 point of damage or something like that. I don't want that. So I know at some point, some of my stuff is going to need a function for equipping, but not in the base stuff. Another thing that I like to incorporate into my little RPG games is some sort of burden system. Think back to the old Diablo 1 system. You had your inventory and different items took up different amount of inventory space depending on the size of it. I like that type of system, but I don't want to get that complex where you got to sit there and micromanage how things are laid out in your backpack. So I usually just go with basically like a burden system where, for instance, you could have a 30-pound block of steel, and then you could have a steel axe that weighs 30 pounds. The axe is going to have more burden because, well, it's bigger, it's bulkier, it's sharper. It's much easier to carry that 30-pound block of steel than it is that 30-pound steel axe. So that's what I'm getting at with the burden. But I know in my games, I like to have a burden system. You do not need them if you do not want it in your game. And the great thing about breaking things down into these little tiny interfaces is that you can go ahead and really customize the game to the way you want just by tweaking one little interface. Now I know I want things in my game to have different quality levels, and for those that play, your typical MMO or just RPG style games, you'll know those as being, like your white items, your green items, your blue items, your purples, your orange, or whatever. And I know I want that in my game. I'm just trying to think, are there going to be any items that will never have a quality level? And I don't think so. I'm pretty sure I want it to every item, even stuff that you can't really not necessarily interact. Everything that you can interact with should have a quality level. And again, just slash there. Now I also know that all my items in game, well, don't want them all to be. I know I want the ability for items to be destroyed, but do all items need that? Are there going to be some items that are just permanent that can never be destroyed? And I think I actually do want some items like quest items and stuff like that. You don't want to have those things taking damage. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I think for quest items. So I want to take advantage on here of the quest item idea. And see, I guess as far as the taking of damage goes, you don't want stuff like quest items taking damage, and I'm sure there might be a couple other instances of items you don't want to take damage. Now, the way damage is going to work in my game is every time you swing your sword, there's a chance of taking damage based on the quality of the sword. Maybe not the quality of the sword necessarily, but the material the sword is made out of. So your wooden sword is not going to last as long as your steel sword, and it's going to take damage faster, and yada, yada, yada. We'll cover that when we get a little bit more into destroying of items, but I know I want a system like that in place. So that means I'm going to need a durability and a take damage method. Now, there's going to be lots of ones down here. I'm eventually just going to copy these out into I guess like not a Word document, but like some sort of text document. And for now, we're just going to keep working on these. And to be honest, I think this here is enough just to start off with just our basic item in game. So let's go ahead and start filling these in. So the first one, a name, it's just going to be stored as a string. So we'll tell it, anytime you call the name method, you're just going to get a name or string back. And I'm going to prefix them all with IS just so I know it's part of my item system. And we'll just have a get and a set. Now, some of these really don't need to have public setters, or they don't want to. But for now, just to quickly get it up and running, we can come back and refactor it later to hide these, some of the methods. But for now, let's just go ahead and we'll just have it like that. So we got name done. Let's do value. And all our values are going to be ints. And again, is value. And we'll set a get and a set for that. Next up is icon. And this here is actually going to be a sprite. We're going to be taking advantage of using the sprite system in Unity for this one here. And we'll call that is icon. All right, after that, looks like we have burden. Yeah, okay. And burden, again, I'm just going to keep it as an int. I'm trying to think, is there any need to do negative values for burden? I can't see anything being a negative burden. But then again, I know I want to serialize these objects, and I want to take a quick check to see if you can serialize uints or unsigned integers. Something in the back of my head saying you can't, but I want to check on that before I go ahead and switch this over to a uint. So for now, we'll keep it as an int. We might just have to put some code in the actual base class on basically checking to make sure that it's a positive value, and if it's not, you know, set it to 0 or something like that. And the quality level. Now the quality level is something that's going to be a little bit different. I think I'm actually going to set that as a class itself, simply because it's the way I'm going to be setting it up in the editor, or the editor that we're going to be making. I think I actually want to have quality level be itself, a class that is. So I'm just going to quickly save this off. Head back into, whoops, helps to hit the right buttons. I'm going to go head back into Unity. And I'm going to create another interface here, except this time I'm going to call it, for the quality, IIS, so interface in the item system. And we're just going to call this quality. And we'll open this bad boy up. Sure, we'll go ahead and reload. Yep, get rid of all those line endings. So same thing. By the time we're done a few of these, you'll probably have this down as second nature. We'll go ahead and get rid of those. So for the quality, there's not a whole lot of things I want in the quality itself, except the name of the quality, and I guess an icon representation of the quality. So when you look at it, say like in your inventory, let's say your legendary quality level is going to be, you know, like orange. Maybe your good quality level is going to have a background of green. That's what we want to have here as far as the sprite goes, and I guess a name to go along with that. Now normally I just do enums for this, but I want to make sure that it's completely easily set up in the inspector, so someone can come along, take this inventory system, or not the inventory system, this item system, and go ahead and create items in the actual item system itself, and never have to touch a line of code. So if they want to have 3 quality levels for their game, maybe they just have, you know, good, better, and bestest, then they can have that, and they can put whatever they want for icons for it, and they can also go ahead and call it whatever they want. Maybe another guy, he has 5 different ones, and he has them, you know, all named differently and looking differently. He can use the exact same system. So that's what we're after here. So there's not a whole lot that we have to include, at least not that I can think of right now, in this interface. So string name, and we'll just do a get, set. No, end it, come on, there we go. And then again, a sprite, and we're gonna call it icon, get, set. And like I said, I think this is it, but since everything's contained within an interface, it's so easy to come back and adjust these later. And it's easier later on in the game when you want to come back, close this, and you're looking at something like this, and you're like, okay, what are all the methods, public methods that we have for our objects in our item system? And instead of going and looking through the class and all the different implementations in the class, you can just come look at this, and you're like, oh, great, this is how it's done. So I am going to need a class for this as well, because, well, there's a couple ways we can do this. We can actually inherit from quality. I don't want to do that. I want to actually implement the class itself. So I'm going to come out here, and I'm just going to create a class, and I'm just going to call it IS quality. We'll open this up, and this is actually going to implement our IIS quality. Let's go ahead, we'll move it here, right beside it. All right, so this is actually going to be a class. We'll get rid of it's not going to inherit from model behavior. It's going to inherit from IIS quality. And if we go ahead, get rid of all of this. And I'm actually going to go ahead and save this here. I just got rid of the line endings for me. And if you right click here, select it anywhere in there, right click, and then you have this implement interface. And of course you can do implement interface or explicitly. If you do implement interface, it'll go ahead and actually make all of the getters and setters for you. Again, I'm old school. I call them getters and setters. Yes, I know they say get and set. Get over it. Or let me go ahead. We'll undo that. If you right click, you can also do it explicitly. And you'll notice that it actually prefaces it with the interface name. So if you have something that's inheriting from a lot of different, well, maybe if you have a big chain of inheritance going on, maybe you're grabbing from this interface, from another interface, maybe from one class, because you don't inherit from one class with another class in C#. But you can have a bunch of that have name, and you're going to confuse the program by saying, well, what name do we use? And you can use the explicitly to get around that. But I know I'm not going to need it here. And just to keep things a little bit cleaner, I'm going to go ahead with just the top one. And let's go ahead and we'll do this class first since we have it opened up. So I'm going to come down here and I want to make some private fields. And the first one I want to make is the name. And of course, if I can spell right. What are we doing here? Oops. Helps if I'm actually in the class and not the method. So the string, I'm going to call it underscore name. I like the underscore to denote private variables. This is something that I've just picked up along the way. By no means do you have to do it. Depending where you work, they might not even like it like that. But it's just one of the things that I do just so I know when I look at that variable, go, oh, that's a private variable. When I'm looking down later on in my code, I see I'm down here and I see underscore whatever, I know it's private. All right, so we're going to need a name, and it looks like all we really need outside of that as well is just the quality, the sprite icon. Man, I just cannot spell today. There we go. Now I know I want these to be displayed, and in some cases I may want them to be displayed over here. Now, with the way that Unity works, there was a couple ways we could do that before. One was just to make it private, and another is to use the serialize field, not fiend, and it's serialize field. Now this keeps it private, but allows it to be displayed over at the side. And we'll cover a little bit more on serialized fields when we get a little bit further in. But I like them. Basically, it gives you the exact same functionality as making it public as far as having it displayed over at the side in your inspector, but it still keeps it private for, as far as script interactions go. Great little tool. And I'm going to be using it a lot in this one. I'm going to go ahead and save this off. And I'm not going to bother filling these out. Well, I guess we could. We're here, we might as well do it. The first thing I want for quality is to have basically your default constructor. So we're going to call it isQuality. And for this here, we're just going to go ahead and say icon is equal to new sprite. Oh, that's wrong. It's underscore icon. That way there, anytime we have a quality setting, we know that there's at least icon is initialized. And of course, for name, we need a string. And I'm just going to start off. All of them by default will be called common. And I like them in the order that I created them up here. It really doesn't matter. Another one of those things that just annoys me if it's out of order. And I like 3 spaces between everything. All right, so for the name, it'll be real simple. All we're going to do is not reference it, just return it. And I don't like the way it structures this. I like it all in one line. I like it like that. And actually, That's how I like it. And for set, I'm just going to go ahead and say that name is equal to the value that we got passed in. Again, there's some error correction that we're going to want to do a little bit later on, but for now, let's get it just the basic setup. Another couple in there. Get. Man, just fingers cannot work today. Return. And I'm going to have to fix this typo. So we're just going to go ahead and return the icon. And for set, we're going to set the icon to be equal to the value. We'll keep that one there though. All right, so let's go ahead. We'll save this off. I think that's it. That's all we need, right? I want by default constructor, the name and the icon. We want to refactor that icon so we get this proper spelling. And this is actually pretty cool. Instead of just fixing it here, if we just tried to fix it here, we'd end up with an error. So I'll put it back here. What you want to do is come down to wherever it was first declared. You can right click, hit refactor, rename, and change it here. Hit apply. I'm going to go ahead and hit save, even though it was saved. If we come back over here, we notice it's changed. So it'll actually go through and change it everywhere that it's been referenced. So that's the proper way to do it. It's pretty cool. So I think that's actually it for our quality. So let's come back into object and we're going to go ahead and reference that. So was it IS quality? Yep. And I'm just going to call it IS quality. And we're just going to have a get and set. Alrighty, is that it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got these ones done. I'm just going to make a comment here. Normally I just move this off to another text file, but since this is going up onto the Git repository, I'm going to leave it here for now. These go to other item interfaces. And as we go ahead and create those interfaces, I'll go ahead and just add them and remove them from our list here. And that'll be it. So let's go ahead and create this class as well. At least the first one. So I'll head back into Unity. I'm going to come in here. Another C# script. Call it IS object. I just thought of another one we could add here, actually. I want to add it before I forget about it. Come on. And some things are going to need some sort of prefab for, like in game, like a weapon. When you click on it, you want to be able to equip it and have it instantiate the actual mesh in your hand or wherever it is that you have it spawning in. So prefab. Some are going to have prefabs. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be a ton more added here, but for now, let's just go ahead and save that one. Go ahead, let me know down in the comments some of the ones that you might think of. Some I might want to add them to mine. I might not, but either way, you should be able to implement them on your own after following the system. So we've already created the script, right? Yeah. So let's go ahead, we'll open it. And like before, this is a class, but we're going to call ISS object. It's not a model behavior, so we'll get rid of void, or the start and the update. And just like before, I'm going to implement the interface. And let's go ahead. We'll start off at the top here. So we want a sprite icon. We want a string name. We want an int value. Let's just shrink these out. A little bit easier to read. We have an int burden. And I forgot the little underscore. And last, we have an IS quality, which we will call quality. Yeah, maybe. All right. Now, I want these to all be private, but again, there's going to be times where I want to play around with them over in the side inspector. So we're going to go ahead and add that serialized field. And the reason why I'm doing it after I went ahead and named them all is just the way they behave in Visual Studio. Look, when I go ahead and paste it here, so it always puts them underneath. That annoys me. I like them all in the same line. To each their own. I'm sure there's probably some way to set this up in Visual Studio, but I'll be jumping around throughout the series between Visual Studio and Mono Develop. There we go. That's why I just like to have mine set up. All right, let's just go through and we'll do the exact same thing for our methods here. So get. We'll just simply return the name. Nothing special there. Set. Name is equal to value, and of course, you can do the underscore. All right, and that one's done. We'll go ahead. We'll jump down to is value, or well, is value, I guess technically is true. Is value. So we're going to return value. And for setting it up, we're going to go ahead and say that value is equal to, well, we have the underscore. That's the other thing too, is if you didn't have the underscore here, you could have a little bit of problems by saying, you know, which one. Of course, we could get around if we didn't have the underscore using the this, basically saying that the value that's in this class. But because we have the underscore, we don't need this. And we'll come down to icon. And again, I just don't like the way it's structured. If there's a way to set that up in Visual Studio and you know about it, to change the structure, go ahead and let me know, because I would love to switch that around. So we'll go ahead and return, not retire, the icon, which is underscore icon. And for set, we'll go ahead and say that the icon is equal to whatever's passed in. And again, like I said before, we're going to have to come through and put some sort of validation code in there for at least some of these, but now I just want to get just the basic structure up. And burden. It might be faster just to do the interface myself instead of having it implemented. But anyway, return underscore burden. And for setting, we want to go ahead and say that the burden, come on, is equal to the value that's passed in. And one more to do. Quality. I think that's the one we'll work on first, is the quality. It's a very small and very simple one to create an editor script for, so it's probably a good one to start with. Just trust me, once you start making a few of these, I don't want to say you get sick of making them, but it becomes very repetitive. And let's just say when I say, oh, we're going to make an editor for this particular class, you'll probably be able to pause the video and run off and make the editor yourself, which is good, because that's probably why you're watching these videos to begin with. So return, which is doing the quality. So what do we call it? We probably just called it quality, didn't we? Yes, we did. And here, quality is equal to the value. Not sure why my voice went up there. I'm not 14 anymore. Let's see. That looks good. Let's go ahead. We'll jump over into Visual Studio. Do we get any errors? Instant line endings. I'm not worried about that. We'll clear it. And I think that's it. That's probably a good spot to stop for this one. We went ahead and created two interfaces. And we went ahead and made two classes that implement those interfaces. And I think this actually is a good spot to stop. I do want to get into the editors really quick. So I'm probably going to go ahead and work on the editors next. Let's save this off. I don't think there's anything that I need, but of course, you know me. If I do, I'll go ahead and implement it as we come along. 3 lines. Mold. Set my ways. 3 lines. There we go. Alrighty. Anyway, like I said, when we get back the next video, I want to go ahead and start playing with the editor. I'm not sure how long it'll take to actually do the editor. It's going to be a very simple one, just the quality, but I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.